"Get your dog off me, it's ruining my life." "Ma'am, that's a service dog, please back off." "I don't care, this is my property." Karen screamed at me in the middle of the grocery store parking lot. What she didn't know was that I'm legally allowed to have my service dog with me, and her ridiculous tantrum was about to backfire in the most satisfying way possible. Hit like if you love watching entitlement implode. Subscribe for stories where Karens meet their match. Buckle up, because this one goes from service dog drama to the wildest dog deal you'll ever hear. I was just finishing my grocery run, carrying a few bags, when the chaos erupted out of nowhere. My service dog, calm and focused as always, was patiently waiting by my side. I hadn't noticed her approach until she was practically shouting in my face. Karen's voice cut through the hum of the parking lot like a siren. She wasn't just upset, she was furious, eyes blazing with that mix of entitlement and disbelief that only a true Karen can conjure. She demanded that I remove my dog, claiming it wasn't allowed. I took a deep breath and tried to explain that this was a service animal trained to assist me, fully legal to be there, but she wasn't listening. Her face twisted with contempt as she waved her arms wildly and told me to get that thing away from her. The whole scene was surreal. People around us stopped and stared. Some raised eyebrows, others pulled out their phones, sensing the beginning of a viral moment. I stayed calm, knowing that raising my voice wouldn't help, but Karen's rage grew louder, turning heads and drawing more onlookers. She accused me of faking my dog's training, claimed that service animals were just an excuse for bad behavior. I was stunned. All I wanted was to finish my shopping in peace. Instead, I was being attacked for something so fundamental to my daily life. Then, without warning, Karen lunged and kicked my dog. It was quick, but the shock of it slammed into me like a freight train. The crowd gasped, some even shouting at her to stop. My dog flinched but stayed steady, trained to handle far worse, but I could see the confusion and pain in his eyes. That moment changed everything. This wasn't just a rude stranger anymore. It was assault. I pulled out my phone and started recording, not just for evidence, but to capture the truth of what just happened. Karen's face turned red, her fury replaced by panic as she realized her outburst was witnessed by dozens. People started coming closer, some offering words of support. The store manager appeared, looking concerned and ready to intervene. Karen tried to keep yelling, but the tide was turning. Her reign of chaos in that parking lot was about to hit a wall, and as for me, I was ready to fight back not with anger, but with action. My service dog isn't just a pet, he's the reason I can get through everyday life without feeling overwhelmed or unsafe. Trained over several years, he's taught to notice when I'm about to have an episode, to help guide me through crowded places, and to calm me when anxiety tries to take over. People see a dog, but for me, he's so much more than that. He's my partner, my protector, and sometimes quite literally my lifeline. The bond we share goes beyond commands and training. It's built on trust, countless hours of work, and a deep understanding of what I need to function in a world that can often feel hostile. Karen had no idea about any of this. To her, he was just an inconvenient animal in her way, a distraction from her carefully curated image of control. She couldn't see the years of work, the vet visits, the countless hours spent at training classes and therapy sessions. She didn't know that he helps me navigate crowds that would otherwise cause panic, or that his presence alone can prevent me from spiraling into fear. Karen didn't care about any of that. She saw a dog, and to her, that was enough reason to lash out. What made it worse was the way people misunderstand service animals. There's this assumption that they are just pets in fancy clothes, or that anyone can claim their dog is a service animal to get special privileges. But it's not like that. There are strict laws and regulations protecting the rights of people who use service dogs, and the training process is rigorous. These dogs go through months, sometimes years, of learning very specific tasks. They are tested on their behavior in public spaces to make sure they don't cause disruptions. My dog passed every test with flying colors because he knows how important his role island. For me, his presence means independence. Without him, simple tasks like grocery shopping or going to the pharmacy become monumental challenges. The fear of encountering people like Karen who don't understand or respect, that makes it even harder. But despite the ignorance and hostility, I wouldn't trade my dog for anything. He's not just an animal. He's the reason I can stand tall even when the world tries to knock me down. The moment Karen actually kicked my dog, everything shifted. Up until then, her yelling and insults were bad enough. But that kick was a line crossed, a boundary shattered. I remember the sharp sound it made, like a sudden crack in the calm air of the parking lot. People gasped, some frozen in disbelief, others starting to move closer as if to intervene. My dog flinched but didn't fall. Years of training had made him resilient to shocks, but I could see the flicker of confusion in his eyes. That look stayed with me, a mix of surprise and hurt that no animal should ever have to endure. I felt a surge of emotions, anger, protectiveness, and a deep sadness all tangled up at once. It wasn't just about the pain Karen had caused. It was about the fact that she didn't even hesitate to lash out at something so essential to my well-being. It was as if she saw him not as a service dog but as an obstacle to her perfect world, a thing to be kicked aside. That was unbearable, but instead of reacting with fury or yelling back, I reached for my phone. The decision wasn't easy. In that split second, I had to remind myself that keeping calm would help more than losing control. I started recording immediately. The camera caught Karen's face twisting from rage to panic as she realized her outburst had witnesses. Her breathing was harsh and uneven, her eyes darting around for a way to regain dominance, but the crowd had already started turning against her. Several shoppers stepped in, offering words of support or just watching with growing disapproval. The store manager appeared, his expression tight as he approached the scene, clearly ready to put an end to the chaos. Karen tried to argue, to justify her actions, but her voice lacked its earlier confidence. That moment marked a turning point. The entire parking lot seemed to shift from chaos to order, the balance of power changing without a word spoken. Karen had lost whatever control she thought she held. I looked down at my dog, who was already shaking off the shock and standing firm beside me. I knew then that this incident was going to go far beyond a parking lot dispute. It was going to be a battle for respect, for rights, and for the simple dignity that service dogs and their owners deserve. And I was ready for it. Right after Karen's reckless kick, I knew I needed to protect not just my dog, but the truth of what had just happened. I pulled out my phone and began recording. The camera captured everything: the shocked faces of bystanders, the growing crowd around us, and Karen's frantic attempts to regain control. Her face was flushed, and her eyes flicked nervously from me to the people watching, as if realizing she had painted herself into a corner. The power of that moment wasn't lost on anyone present, including Karen herself. Other shoppers started to chime in, some whispering support, others openly expressing their disbelief at her behavior. One woman muttered that she couldn't believe someone would treat a service dog that way. Another gentleman stepped closer and said something under his breath about entitlement gone wild. I didn't need to hear every word to know the sentiment in the air had shifted. What had seemed like a routine grocery run had turned into a public reckoning. People instinctively understood the injustice they were witnessing. Then the store manager appeared, his face a mix of concern and authority. He approached calmly but firmly, asking Karen to step aside and reminding her that such behavior was unacceptable on the premises. Karen tried to argue, her voice rising, but the manager wasn't having it. He asked if anyone had been hurt and checked on my dog with genuine concern. That simple act of kindness from a stranger was a relief, and I could see it in my dog's eyes too. He wagged his tail slightly, sensing the shift from tension to safety. Meanwhile, the recording continued, documenting everything not just for my protection but for anyone else who might face similar harassment. Service dog owners often encounter ignorance, and having proof is vital when people refuse to respect the law or common decency. I knew this video could become more than just evidence. It could be a tool to educate others about what service animals mean and why they deserve respect. The crowd slowly began to disperse, but not before a few people came over to offer quiet words of encouragement. One young mother told me how much she admired my patience and strength. Another man said he had a family member with a service dog and understood how important this fight was. That solidarity meant more than words can express. In that moment, despite the chaos Karen had caused, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't just about me or my dog anymore. It was about standing up for everyone who relies on service animals to live their lives with dignity. After the chaos in the parking lot, I took my service dog straight to the vet clinic. I wanted to make sure he was okay. The vet was kind and professional, checking him over carefully. There were no visible injuries, thankfully, but I could tell he was a bit shaken. He stayed close to me, his body tense but calm, like he understood the seriousness of what had just happened. That visit to the clinic wasn't just about healing my dog's body, it was the beginning of something much bigger. The clinic staff were incredibly supportive from the start. They had seen their share of difficult clients, but nothing quite like Karen's kind of aggression. When I explained what had happened, the vets and technicians listened closely, their faces reflecting both concern and understanding. They weren't just treating animals, they were advocates for the people who depended on them. I could tell they recognized how important my service dog was to me, not just as a pet but as a vital part of my daily life. A few days later, Karen's dog showed up at the same clinic. That's when I learned something interesting. The staff shared quietly that Karen's dog had a reputation there. Apparently, he was not an easy patient. There were stories about him growling at staff, snapping at other dogs, and generally causing tension in the waiting room. It was clear that Karen had a harder time managing her dog's behavior than she let on. The contrast between my calm, trained service dog and her unpredictable pet was striking. This unexpected information planted an idea in my mind. If Karen's dog was a problem at the clinic, what would happen if the clinic took responsibility for him? I wondered how that might change things not just for me, but for the clinic staff who had to deal with Karen's constant drama. It was a long shot, but I decided to explore the idea further. The more I thought about it, the more it seemed like a way to finally bring some peace to a situation that had spiraled out of control. The clinic was more than willing to listen. They understood the dynamics at play and were open to helping resolve the tension in whatever way they could. What started as a routine vet visit slowly turned into a partnership. Together, we began to consider options that would protect both the dogs and the people involved. It felt like the first step toward turning a nightmare into something manageable, maybe even positive. It didn't take long for the clinic staff to reveal a side of Karen's dog I hadn't expected. When her dog came in for his usual checkup, the vet and the technicians exchanged knowing looks as they quietly shared stories about his behavior. He wasn't just a typical pet causing minor mischief. He had a history of being difficult, even aggressive, when other dogs or people got too close. Staff recounted times when he'd growled or snapped at employees and other patients in the waiting room. It was clear that Karen's dog wasn't well behaved or easy to manage, and that the clinic had to tread carefully to avoid any serious incidents. Hearing this, I started to see the whole situation from a new perspective. Karen had been carrying her entitlement like armor, but behind the scenes, her dog was causing real problems. The staff described how they often had to separate her dog from others, sometimes even schedule appointments in quieter hours just to keep the peace. It was obvious that her pet was a handful, and that Karen herself didn't seem to take responsibility for managing his behavior. Her focus was always on controlling people around her, but she paid little attention to how her dog affected those around him. That contrast between my service dog, calm and trained for public spaces, and Karen's problematic pet was impossible to ignore. It wasn't just a clash of personalities between owners, but also a battle of responsibility versus recklessness. While my dog's behavior was a product of years of careful training, Karen's dog was a powder keg waiting to explode. The clinic staff had to walk a fine line between care and caution every time he came in. This revelation made me more confident in the idea I'd been considering. If the clinic took ownership or full responsibility for Karen's dog, it would remove the source of so much drama. The staff could manage his behavior professionally, and Karen would lose her weapon of chaos. It felt like a way to protect everyone, my dog, the clinic workers, and the community around us. The dog's history at the clinic wasn't just a coincidence. It was a sign that something needed to change. The dog was more than just a pet to Karen, he was part of the problem she refused to see. After learning about Karen's dog's behavior at the clinic, I realized it was time to take a bold step. The chaos she'd caused by kicking my service dog wasn't going to go unanswered. I decided to make her an offer she wouldn't see coming. One afternoon, I approached the vet clinic manager with a proposition. I wanted to sell Karen's dog to them. The idea was as surprising to me as it was to them at first. It wasn't about money. It was about accountability and putting an end to the drama that Karen seemed to bring everywhere she went. The clinic staff listened carefully as I explained my reasoning. Karen's dog was a danger in social spaces, aggressive and unpredictable, and it was clear the clinic was already managing him more than Karen was. Taking ownership would allow them to provide the care and control he needed without the constant interference and tension Karen caused. I wanted to make sure the dog would be in good hands, away from the chaos that surrounded her owner. The clinic agreed to consider the arrangement and brought in their legal team to draft an agreement. When I presented the idea to Karen, her reaction was priceless. She stood there, mouth agape, clearly shocked that I had the power to make such a proposal. The expression on her face quickly twisted from disbelief to fury. She accused me of overstepping, claimed I had no right to interfere with her dog, and threatened to take legal action. But the clinic was firm. The agreement was clear. If Karen refused to cooperate, the dog's care would be fully transferred to the clinic, who would then manage all decisions regarding his welfare. Karen's confidence began to waver as she realized the clinic wasn't backing down. For the first time, she was losing control. The dog she had treated as a weapon to intimidate others was no longer hers to use. The clinic's legal team made sure the contract was ironclad, protecting both the dog's well-being and their own staff from further incidents. Karen was furious, but without the dog under her control, her tantrums lost their edge. This sale wasn't about punishment. It was about ensuring safety for everyone involved: my service dog, Karen's dog, the clinic staff, and the community. By transferring ownership, the clinic could provide proper training and supervision. Karen's world, built on chaos and control, was crumbling. And as she fumed, I felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that this was the beginning of the end of her reign of entitlement. When Karen first realized that her dog was no longer under her control, the shock hit her like a wave. She had always prided herself on being the one who called the shots, the one who dictated how things went in her little world. Losing control over her dog was a blow she hadn't anticipated, and it rattled her deeply. Her confidence, once so fierce and unshakable, began to crack. The dog wasn't just a pet to her, it was a symbol of her power, a way to assert dominance in every situation. Now, that symbol was slipping through her fingers. She paced back and forth outside the clinic, her face flushed with frustration and disbelief. Her voice was a mix of anger and desperation as she demanded answers from the staff. She insisted the dog was hers, that she had every right to make decisions about him. But the clinic staff remained calm and professional, explaining that the legal agreement was clear and that they were now responsible for the dog's care and management. Karen's protests only made her look more irrational in front of the other clients and staff. The shift in power was undeniable. For years, Karen had been able to bully her way through neighborhood disputes, using her dog as a tool to intimidate and control. She had used that sense of ownership to dismiss anyone who challenged her. But now, with the clinic holding the leash, so to speak, she had lost her leverage. Her tantrums and threats no longer carried the same weight, because she no longer had the means to back them up. What made the situation even more difficult for Karen was the fact that the clinic's team was well prepared. They had clear policies in place, legal backing, and a commitment to providing a safe environment for all their patients and staff. They were not going to let Karen bully them or their patients, and that certainty was like a fortress against her attempts to regain control. Her power plays fell flat, and the community watching this unfold could see the change happening in real time. As the days passed, Karen's attitude shifted from fiery defiance to a simmering resentment. She was no longer the uncontested queen of the neighborhood drama. The dog that had been her tool was now in the hands of professionals who prioritized care and safety over entitlement. Watching her lose that grip was a strange kind of justice, a reminder that sometimes the biggest downfall comes when you least expect it. You might wonder how something like this was even possible. How could I, just a regular person dealing with an entitled neighbor, manage to pull off something that sounded like a plot twist from a movie? The answer lies in a little-known but surprisingly powerful legal loophole surrounding pet ownership and liability. It wasn't something I stumbled upon by accident. It was the result of careful research and advice from the clinic's legal team, who understood the complexity of the situation better than anyone. In most cases, ownership of a pet is straightforward. The person who brings the animal home and cares for it is legally responsible. But when a pet causes trouble, especially in public or professional settings like a veterinary clinic, liability and control can become complicated. If a dog is deemed dangerous or unmanageable by professionals, and its owner refuses to cooperate or put the animal's well-being first, responsibility can sometimes be transferred. This transfer protects the community, the animal, and the staff who interact with it daily. The clinic's legal experts explain that by documenting Karen's aggressive behavior toward my service dog and the problems her own dog caused, they could take steps to intervene. The agreement I made to sell Karen's dog to the clinic wasn't a traditional sale in the commercial sense. It was more of a legal transfer of custody and responsibility, designed to keep the dog in a safer environment and away from the source of conflict. The clinic became the legal guardian, with full authority over the dog's care, training, and any necessary behavioral management. This legal arrangement gave the clinic the power to protect not just their staff but also other patients and clients. It limited Karen's ability to use the dog as a tool of intimidation and prevented her from further harassing me or anyone else in the community. The clinic's lawyer made sure every document was airtight, anticipating any attempts Karen might make to challenge the transfer. For me, this legal loophole was a game changer. It wasn't just about revenge or winning a neighborhood feud. It was about creating a lasting solution that ensured safety and peace for everyone involved. Understanding the legal framework and working with professionals who knew how to navigate it was what made all the difference. Sometimes, justice isn't about fighting fire with fire, but about finding the right legal spark that turns the tide in your favor. The next time Karen showed up at the clinic, it was clear she wasn't ready to accept what had happened. Her fury was palpable as she stormed through the waiting room, her voice loud and filled with threats. She demanded to speak with the manager and insisted that she should still have full control over her dog. The clinic staff, however, were calm and professional, standing their ground behind the legal agreement that transferred the dog's care to them. Karen's usual tactics, yelling, intimidation, and wild accusations fell flat against the clinic's firm stance. Her tantrum didn't just happen behind closed doors. She raised her voice so loudly that other clients turned to watch, whispering to each other in disbelief. Some were clearly uncomfortable, others annoyed by the disruption. Karen's reputation in the community began to precede her, and now it was catching up with her. The clinic staff recorded her outburst carefully, knowing that every word and every gesture could be important later. It was as if Karen's meltdown became a public performance, one that only hurt her case. Social media soon got wind of what was happening. Someone who had been in the clinic that day posted a video of Karen screaming and threatening legal action. It quickly spread across neighborhood groups and service dog communities. People were shocked, but many also expressed support for the clinic and for me. Karen's behavior wasn't just unkind, it was reckless and inappropriate, especially in a place meant to care for animals. Legal threats came next. Karen contacted lawyers, promising to fight the clinic in court and reclaim her dog. She accused the clinic of theft and negligence, painting herself as the victim. But the clinic was prepared. Their legal team responded with the signed agreements and detailed documentation of Karen's past aggressive behavior, both towards staff and my service dog. The evidence was overwhelming and well organized, making it clear who was responsible for the turmoil. For Karen, this was a blow to her carefully constructed image of control. She was used to being able to bully her way through situations, but the clinic's professionalism and legal backing left her with no room to maneuver. As her threats grew louder, the community only rallied more strongly behind the clinic and me. What Karen didn't realize was that the tide had turned, and her attempts to regain power would only deepen her isolation. The moment the video of Karen's meltdown at the clinic hit social media, it spread like wildfire. People couldn't believe what they were seeing. There she was, yelling and threatening staff, her face red with rage, while the clinic employees remained calm and composed. The contrast was striking, and viewers immediately took sides. Support poured in for the clinic and for me, the service dog owner who had been unjustly attacked. The internet had found its latest Karen meltdown, and it was pure viral gold. Messages of encouragement flooded my social media accounts. Strangers shared their own stories of being harassed or misunderstood because of their service animals. Some praised the clinic for standing firm. Others admired how I had handled the situation with patience and dignity. The video became more than just a clip of a chaotic moment. It turned into a powerful reminder of the importance of respecting service animals and their owners. People were finally seeing what I had known all along, that these dogs are more than pets, and that their handlers deserve protection, not harassment. The clinic's reputation soared as well. They were hailed as heroes for not only caring for my dog, but also for taking a stand against Karen's disruptive behavior. Many in the community began scheduling their pets' appointments there, wanting to support a place that upheld kindness and professionalism. The staff received messages from grateful clients who appreciated their dedication and courage in handling such a difficult situation. The clinic had become a symbol of how businesses could do the right thing, even under pressure. Karen, on the other hand, quickly became an internet spectacle for all the wrong reasons. The more she tried to explain or defend herself, the worse it looked. Her threats to sue and claims of victimhood were met with skepticism and, often, ridicule online. Memes and comments flooded forums, mocking her tantrums and the irony of her losing control of her own dog. Instead of sympathy, Karen faced widespread public disapproval, which only intensified her isolation. Through all this, I realized something important. The power of community and the truth could shine through even the darkest moments. When people come together to support what's right, they can create real change. My fight with Karen wasn't just about a kick dog anymore. It had become a story about respect, justice, and standing up against entitlement. And in that fight, we were winning. Karen wasn't ready to accept defeat, not by a long shot. After the clinic firmly took responsibility for her dog, she launched into a full-blown campaign to try and regain control. She made phone calls, sent emails, and showed up repeatedly at the clinic demanding answers. Her voice was loud and threatening, filled with anger and disbelief. She claimed the whole situation was a mistake, that the clinic had no right to take her dog, and threatened legal action to get the dog back. But the clinic's staff and legal team had anticipated her moves. They responded with patience and professionalism, presenting the signed agreements and a detailed history of Karen's behavior that justified the transfer. Despite her fury, Karen found herself cornered. The clinic had clear policies in place and legal backing that made any attempt to reverse the transfer nearly impossible. Her dog was now in the hands of professionals who prioritize safety and care, not entitlement. Karen's usual tactics of bullying and intimidation didn't work here. The clinic staff were trained to handle difficult situations and refused to be rattled by her threats. Her tantrums became less frequent and noticeably less effective. Outside the clinic, the drama didn't stop. Karen took to social media to rally support, posting angry messages and videos claiming she was the real victim. She accused the clinic of theft and cruelty, trying to turn public opinion in her favor. But the response was overwhelmingly against her. People had seen the videos of her outbursts and were quick to call out her behavior for what it was, entitled, aggressive, and unjustified. Online forums and neighborhood groups debated the story, with most siding firmly with the clinic and me. Karen's attempts to use the legal system were equally futile. Lawyers she consulted warned her that the documentation was strong and that pursuing the matter further would likely backfire. It became clear that her fight was more about holding on to control than about the welfare of her dog. The more she pushed, the more isolated she became. Friends and neighbors began to distance themselves, tired of her drama and constant conflict. Watching Karen spiral was a strange kind of vindication. She had built her identity on control and dominance, but in the end, she lost not just the dog but also the respect of the community. The clinic and I moved forward, focused on healing and peace, while Karen was left to grapple with the consequences of her own actions. The chaos caused by Karen's antics prompted the clinic to rethink its policies and procedures to protect both their staff and the animals in their care. What had once been a routine veterinary practice became a place where difficult clients like Karen forced a shift towards stronger protections and clearer guidelines. The clinic staff worked tirelessly to create rules that would prevent any future incidents from spiraling out of control. They recognized that service animals and their owners deserved special consideration, and that protecting them meant taking a firm stance against harassment and aggression. New protocols were introduced that prioritized safety and respect above all else. Staff were trained to handle confrontations calmly and professionally, while being empowered to refuse service or contact authorities if a client became abusive or threatening. These measures weren't just about protecting employees. They were about creating an environment where every animal and owner could feel safe and respected. The clinic began emphasizing education for clients in the community, explaining the importance of service animals and the legal protections that come with them. The experience with Karen had made the clinic staff realize how often service animal owners face discrimination and hostility. They started working closely with local advocacy groups to raise awareness and provide resources for people in similar situations. Workshops and informational sessions became part of the clinic's offerings, helping to educate pet owners and the public about the rights of service animals and how to interact respectfully. The clinic wanted to turn their challenging experience into a positive force for change. Community members responded warmly to the clinic's new approach. People appreciated knowing there was a place that would stand firm for service animals and their owners, especially after seeing how Karen had tried to disrupt the peace. The clinic became more than just a veterinary office. It became a hub for support and education. Clients felt reassured that their pets, especially service animals, were in safe hands and that any form of harassment wouldn't be tolerated. Karen's dramatic behavior had unwittingly sparked something important. The clinic's new policies set a precedent in the neighborhood and beyond, showing that entitlement and aggression have no place in caring for animals. This experience became a blueprint for other clinics facing similar challenges. What started as a nightmare ended up creating a stronger, more compassionate community where respect and kindness took center stage. The battle with Karen didn't just end with the clinic and me. It sparked something much bigger, a community of support that I hadn't expected but deeply appreciated. After everything that happened, friends, neighbors, and even strangers reached out to share their own stories of dealing with entitlement and harassment. Many of them had service animals or knew someone who did, and they understood the challenges we faced in a world that often doesn't respect those needs. Suddenly, I wasn't alone anymore. Messages poured in from people across the neighborhood, each one telling tales of their own Karen encounters. Some spoke of verbal abuse, others of more subtle discrimination, but all of them shared the same frustration with people who refused to see service animals as what they truly are. The stories connected like threads in a tapestry, weaving a larger picture of a community pushed to its limits by entitlement and ignorance. It was both comforting and sobering to realize how widespread the problem really was. Neighbors began organizing informal support groups, gatherings where we could share experiences and advice on how to handle difficult situations. We talked about the importance of knowing our rights, staying calm in confrontations, and documenting every incident. The conversations became a lifeline for many of us, providing strength and solidarity when facing people like Karen. It was healing to know that others understood the weight of what we carried and the courage it took to stand up for ourselves and our animals. The clinic became a central hub for this growing community. Staff members who had witnessed Karen's tantrums and supported me through the ordeal opened their doors for meetings and educational events. They invited local experts to speak about service animal laws and best practices for owners and businesses alike. The atmosphere shifted from fear and frustration to empowerment and hope. Together, we were creating a space where respect for service animals was not just expected but demanded. This network extended beyond just neighbors. Online forums and social media groups blossomed, connecting people from far and wide who faced similar struggles. It was inspiring to see how a story that began with one person's confrontation could evolve into a movement. The collective voice of service animal owners grew louder, stronger, and more impossible to ignore. And through it all, I realized that standing up to Karen had led to something far greater than I had ever imagined. Amidst all the chaos, an unexpected friendship began to grow. One of the vets at the clinic, someone who had seen Karen's outbursts firsthand, reached out to me with genuine kindness and understanding. She wasn't just a medical professional, she was an advocate for the animals and the people who depended on them. Her calm demeanor and thoughtful approach helped me see a new side to the ordeal. Instead of feeling isolated in the battle, I now had an ally who truly cared about the well-being of my service dog and the broader fight for respect. We started talking more frequently, initially about my dog's recovery and the stress of dealing with Karen's relentless drama. Those conversations quickly moved into deeper territory. She shared stories of other service dog owners who had faced harassment and the clinic's efforts to create a safe environment for everyone. Her insights helped me understand the challenges that clinics face when difficult clients threaten the peace. More than that, she offered support, reminding me that I wasn't alone and that the clinic was committed to standing by me. This friendship became a source of strength. When Karen's behavior flared up again, I found myself turning to her for advice instead of facing the situation alone. She helped me strategize responses that were calm but firm, emphasizing the importance of documentation and knowing my rights. It was a relief to have someone in my corner who understood not just the emotional toll, but also the practical steps needed to protect myself and my dog. Our bond was built on trust and shared purpose. The vet's perspective also gave me hope. She believed that change was possible, that with enough education and advocacy, misunderstandings about service dogs could be reduced. Together, we started brainstorming ways to reach the community more effectively, discussing workshops and outreach programs. Her passion was infectious, and it rekindled my own determination to turn this painful experience into something meaningful. In the end, this unexpected friendship was a bright spot in a difficult time. It showed me that even in the midst of conflict and chaos, genuine connections could form. With her by my side, I felt more prepared to face whatever came next. Karen's tantrums might have caused the storm, but this friendship was the calm that followed, giving me the strength to keep moving forward. Months after the ownership transfer, Karen wasn't done trying to reclaim her dog. Her attempts became a mix of desperate phone calls, angry emails, and even visits to the clinic, each one more frantic than the last. She was convinced that if she just pushed hard enough, she could undo the legal agreement and take back what she believed was hers. But with every effort, she ran into the same unyielding wall. The clinic stood firm, backed by clear contracts and legal advice, refusing to bow to her demands or threats. Karen's persistence was exhausting for everyone involved. She showed up unannounced, stormed into offices demanding immediate attention, and tried to enlist sympathy by painting herself as a grieving and wronged owner. Yet the staff knew better. They had witnessed her pattern of aggression and neglect, seen the consequences of her inability to control her dog, and understood that the arrangement was in the best interest of the dog's welfare. Her dramatic pleas fell on deaf ears. She even tried legal channels, consulting attorneys who could offer little hope of success. The documentation from the clinic was airtight, and the history of incidents involving Karen's behavior weighed heavily against her. Any attempt to challenge the transfer would have been costly and likely futile. The legal counsel advised her that prolonging the fight would only drain resources and worsen her standing. But Karen's pride and need for control kept her pushing forward, unwilling to accept defeat. Over time, the community started to notice the change in Karen. Her usual confidence gave way to a simmering resentment. The neighbors who once avoided conflict now quietly discussed how she had lost not just her dog, but also the respect of those around her. People who had once been reluctant to get involved now felt vindicated in their frustrations. Karen's power plays had backfired, and her isolation grew. Through all this, the clinic and I focused on healing and moving forward. The dog was now in a safe, stable environment, receiving the care and training he needed. The tense days of confrontation began to fade, replaced by calm and routine. Karen's fight had lost its momentum, but it served as a powerful reminder of what happens when entitlement is met with professionalism and resolve. Her downfall was complete, and the community could finally breathe easier. This whole ordeal taught me a lot about the rights of service animal owners. Before Karen's outburst and everything that followed, I didn't fully understand just how protected service dogs and their handlers are under the law. I knew the basics, like the Americans with Disabilities Act that allows service dogs to accompany their owners in public spaces, but I hadn't realized how much more there was to it. It wasn't just about carrying a certificate or wearing a vest. There are real legal protections in place that make it illegal for someone to interfere with or harass a service animal. One of the key things I learned is that service dogs have to meet strict training standards. They are not pets. They perform specific tasks that help their owners navigate everyday challenges. This means the law treats them differently from regular animals. When someone like Karen tries to deny access or mistreat a service dog, it's not just rude, it's against the law. Businesses, public places, and even private property owners are required to allow service dogs, provided they are under control and behaving appropriately. Understanding these laws gave me confidence to stand my ground. I learned that if a person tries to interfere with a service dog, I have the right to report them and even seek legal action if necessary. It's important to document incidents and have witnesses, which is why I recorded Karen's tantrums, and the clinic's support was so crucial. Without that, it would have been my word against hers, and she might have gotten away with her harassment. I also found out about the limits of what people can ask. For example, no one can demand proof that a dog is a service animal, like paperwork or certification, and handlers are not required to explain their disability. This was a relief because it means privacy is respected. The focus is on the dog's behavior and whether it is assisting the owner, not on personal medical details. Knowing all this is empowering. It doesn't just protect me and my dog, but others who rely on service animals every day. If you have a service dog or are thinking of getting one, it's worth learning your rights so you can protect yourself and your companion. Ignorance can make people vulnerable to harassment, but knowledge is a powerful shield against entitlement and discrimination. Dealing with someone like Karen in public spaces is never easy. The first step is to stay calm, even when your blood is boiling and your instincts scream to confront the person head-on. I learned early on that reacting with anger or frustration only fuels their fire. People like Karen thrive on attention and drama, so the best way to diffuse the situation is to maintain your composure and keep your voice steady. This doesn't mean you let them walk all over you, but it means you don't give them the reaction they want. Knowing your rights is critical. Service dog handlers are protected by laws that give them access to most public spaces, and understanding these protections can give you the confidence to assert yourself when someone challenges you. If Karen tries to tell you your dog isn't allowed, you can calmly explain that your dog is a legally recognized service animal, trained to assist with specific needs. You don't owe anyone an explanation beyond that, and you certainly don't have to provide documentation or proof. Keeping the conversation short and factual helps prevent it from escalating. Documenting everything is another important tool. I always keep my phone handy when I'm out with my service dog, ready to record any harassment or unreasonable demands. Video evidence is powerful because it shows what really happened, not just what was said. It can protect you in legal disputes or when reporting incidents to authorities or businesses. Bystanders often sympathize when they see someone being unfairly treated, and having a recording can help rally support quickly. If the situation becomes hostile or threatening, don't hesitate to remove yourself and your dog from the scene if possible. Your safety and your dog's well-being come first. You can report the incident later to the appropriate authorities or business management. There are support organizations and legal resources available for service dog owners who face harassment, so reaching out for help is always a good idea. Finally, building a community with other service dog owners can provide strength and advice. Sharing stories, tips, and resources makes the journey easier and reminds you that you're not alone. Facing a Karen can be intimidating, but with preparation and calm confidence, you can protect yourself and your service dog from entitlement and ignorance. It's a skill worth learning, and one that makes every outing safer and more peaceful. The video of Karen's meltdown at the clinic quickly captured attention far beyond our little neighborhood. It wasn't just shared among local friends or service dog groups. Suddenly, it was everywhere online, on social media platforms, community forums, and even in news feeds. People were drawn to the raw emotion in the video, the clear injustice of a service dog owner being harassed and attacked in public. It sparked a nationwide conversation about entitlement and respect for those with service animals. Media outlets picked up the story, inviting me to share my experience. I never expected to be in the spotlight, but the chance to educate others about service dog rights felt important. Interviews followed, where I explained the role of service animals and why harassment isn't just rude, it can be harmful and even illegal. The story resonated because it was more than just a conflict with a difficult neighbor. It was about standing up for dignity and inclusion. The clinic gained recognition as well. They were praised for their professionalism and for standing firm in the face of Karen's aggression. People appreciated how they had handled the situation with care and respect, not only for my dog but for all the animals in their care. Their commitment to safety and advocacy became a model for other clinics facing similar challenges. The story highlighted the importance of training staff to support service animal owners and to address harassment effectively. What surprised me most was the outpouring of support from people who had never owned a service dog but understood the bigger picture. They saw the story as a call to respect boundaries and rights, whether it involved disabilities, animals, or simple human decency. The viral nature of the video helped spread awareness far beyond what I could have done alone. It showed how a single moment captured on camera can become a catalyst for change. At the same time, Karen's reputation took a major hit. Her angry outbursts and attempts to reclaim control played out in public view and online, where they were met with ridicule and criticism. Instead of sympathy, she faced widespread disapproval. The internet turned her into a cautionary tale, a warning about how entitlement and aggression can backfire in the age of social media. Karen was far from finished. Losing control of her dog was a blow she refused to accept quietly. Instead, she escalated her efforts in ways that surprised even those who had come to expect the worst from her. She began reaching out to anyone who might listen, making accusations, spreading rumors, and trying to rally support for her cause. Her posts on social media grew more desperate and bitter, filled with complaints about the clinic, the staff, and me. She painted herself as a victim of an elaborate conspiracy designed to strip her of her rights and her dog. Behind the scenes, Karen's actions became more aggressive. She sent threatening letters to the clinic, contacted local animal control agencies, and even tried to influence neighborhood groups to pressure the clinic into giving her back the dog. None of these efforts succeeded, but they created a tense atmosphere that kept everyone on edge. People who had initially been curious or neutral started to distance themselves, not wanting to be caught in the middle of her drama. At the same time, Karen's dog was settled into the clinic's care, receiving training and support that had been sorely lacking under her ownership. The clinic's professionals worked patiently to help him overcome his behavioral issues, creating a safer environment for the dog, the staff, and the community. It was clear that this was the best place for him, even if Karen refused to admit it. The dog's progress was a quiet victory in the midst of the ongoing conflict. Despite Karen's attempts to fight back, her credibility was slipping away. More and more people saw her not as a wronged owner, but as someone unable to accept responsibility for her actions. Her online rants only alienated her further, turning neighbors and acquaintances against her. The community's patience wore thin, and Karen found herself increasingly isolated. Her escalating behavior made it clear that this wasn't just about a dog anymore. It was about control, pride, and a refusal to accept consequences. Watching her unravel was a reminder that entitlement, when left unchecked, can lead to self-destruction. Meanwhile, the clinic and I focused on moving forward, turning the page toward healing and calm, leaving Karen and her drama behind. The deal to transfer Karen's dog to the clinic wasn't about money, but when the time came to formalize it, there was a small sum involved. I decided to take that money and put it to good use. Instead of letting it disappear into the chaos Karen had created, I used it to help others in similar situations. Knowing how much a service dog means to its owner, I wanted to make sure that other people who relied on these incredible animals had access to support and resources when they faced harassment or difficulties. I reached out to local organizations that train and support service dogs. Some focused on veterans, others helped people with disabilities or chronic illnesses. The money helped fund training sessions, vet care, and educational programs. I also contributed to support groups where service dog owners could connect, share advice, and find strength in community. What began as a small gesture became a meaningful way to turn a negative experience into something positive and lasting. Helping others gave me a sense of purpose beyond the battle with Karen. It reminded me that the fight wasn't just about one dog or one owner. It was about a whole community of people who depend on service animals every day. By contributing to their training and care, I was helping to protect their independence and dignity. It was a way to push back against ignorance and entitlement with kindness and action. The clinic supported this effort wholeheartedly. They helped identify the organizations and programs that could make the best use of the funds. Together, we ensured the money went where it could have the most impact. The staff, who had witnessed Karen's disruptive behavior and supported me throughout, felt proud to be part of something bigger than just one difficult case. What surprised me was how many people stepped forward to contribute as well. After hearing about the story and the efforts to help others, community members and even strangers began donating time and resources. It became a small movement, spreading awareness and providing practical help to those with service animals. Karen's tantrum had inadvertently sparked a wave of goodwill and support. In the end, the money from the sale of Karen's dog didn't just buy a quiet resolution, it funded hope, training, and community. It was proof that even in the face of entitlement and chaos, positive change is possible when people come together with purpose and compassion. What surprised me most during this whole ordeal was the outpouring of support from animal advocates and service dog organizations. As the story spread, groups dedicated to protecting service animals reached out with encouragement and resources. They saw the struggle not just as a personal battle, but as part of a larger issue that affects many people every day. Their involvement added a new layer of strength to the fight, showing me that I wasn't alone and that there was a wider network of people ready to stand up for service dog owners everywhere. These advocates were passionate and knowledgeable. They helped spread awareness about the rights of service dog handlers and educated the public about the importance of respecting these animals. They also provided guidance on how to deal with harassment and discrimination, sharing legal tips and emotional support. Their commitment to protecting service animals felt like a powerful force, a shield against the kind of ignorance and entitlement Karen represented. Many organizations invited me to participate in events and discussions. I was given a platform to share my experience, hoping to inspire others who might be facing similar challenges. Together, we worked on campaigns to educate businesses and communities, emphasizing the vital role service dogs play in the lives of their owners. It was empowering to be part of something bigger, turning my difficult experience into a chance to make a real difference. The animal advocates also helped push for stronger protections. They lobbied for clearer laws and better enforcement to prevent harassment of service dog owners. Their efforts extended beyond just raising awareness. They sought tangible changes to ensure that no one else would have to endure what I did. Their dedication was inspiring and gave me hope that future service dog handlers would face less resistance and more respect. Through this process, I saw how important community and advocacy are. The support I received reinforced the idea that change happens when people come together with shared purpose. Karen's story was a catalyst, but the movement it helped build was much larger. It showed that even in the face of ignorance and hostility, compassion and justice can prevail when people unite. Karen's reputation took a serious hit after everything unfolded. Word spread quickly through the neighborhood, and people began to see her in a very different light. What had once been a woman who demanded respect because she believed she deserved, it turned into a cautionary tale about entitlement and unchecked behavior. The stories about her tantrums, her aggressive treatment of my service dog, and the chaos she caused at the clinic became common knowledge. Conversations in local shops, coffee houses, and community gatherings often included her name, but rarely with sympathy. Neighbors who had once been hesitant to get involved started speaking out. Some shared their own uncomfortable experiences with Karen, revealing patterns of manipulation and intimidation. It became clear that her behavior wasn't limited to me or my dog. For years, she had been using her sense of entitlement to bully and control those around her. People began to realize that standing up to her was not only justified but necessary for the well-being of the community. At community meetings, Karen's name came up as an example of how toxic dynamics can disrupt peace and harmony. Local leaders discussed the importance of setting boundaries and enforcing rules fairly, so no one person could dominate the neighborhood through fear or aggression. The story about her losing control of her dog to the clinic was often cited as a turning point, proof that accountability mattered and that even the most entitled could be held responsible. Online, the neighborhood forums and social media groups buzzed with commentary. Memes, videos, and posts poked fun at Karen's meltdown moments, turning them into lessons about humility and respect. While some found humor in her downfall, most used the stories to educate others about service animal rights and the importance of kindness. The digital conversations helped to create a collective understanding that entitlement comes with consequences, especially in a connected world. Despite the damage to her reputation, Karen continued to try and maintain her standing among a small group of supporters, but those efforts were often met with skepticism or outright dismissal. The wider community had moved on, embracing a culture of respect and support that made it clear Karen's reign of chaos was over. Her story remains a reminder that entitlement might give someone a loud voice for a time, but in the end, respect and kindness speak much louder. After the dust finally settled, I found a way to reclaim peace and a sense of normalcy in my life. The constant tension and unpredictability had worn me down more than I expected. Living with a service dog means having a companion who is both a source of strength and sometimes a target for those who don't understand. Karen's drama had taken a toll, but it also taught me valuable lessons about boundaries and self-care that I carry with me every day. Setting clear boundaries became my first step toward healing. I learned to say no firmly and calmly when confronted with entitlement or ignorance. I stopped trying to explain myself endlessly to people who refused to listen. Instead, I focused on what I could control: my reactions and my environment. I worked closely with the clinic to ensure my dog's safety and comfort, knowing that a strong support system was essential to moving forward. Understanding my legal rights was also empowering. Knowing that the law protects service animals and their handlers gave me confidence to stand up when needed without fear. I learned how to document incidents effectively, what to say, and when to seek help. This knowledge became a shield, helping me navigate public spaces with less anxiety. It reminded me that I was not alone, and that there were tools available to protect myself and my dog. Community support played a huge role as well. The network that formed in the aftermath of the confrontation proved invaluable. Friends, neighbors, and advocates rallied around me, offering encouragement and practical advice. Knowing there was a community that understood the unique challenges of service dog owners made a huge difference. Together, we shared stories, resources, and strength. Moving forward meant focusing on the positive moments, quiet walks with my dog, peaceful outings, and the joy of companionship. It meant trusting in the progress we'd made and the lessons learned. The chaos Karen brought into my life had been overwhelming, but it also sparked growth and resilience. I found a new sense of peace not by avoiding conflict entirely, but by being prepared, informed, and supported. In the end, reclaiming normalcy wasn't about forgetting what happened. It was about using those experiences to build a stronger, calmer, and more confident life. It was about knowing that no matter what challenges come, I could face them with dignity and grace alongside my service dog. Looking back on everything, I realized this story was never just about me or my service dog. It was about something much bigger, a shared experience that connects many people who rely on service animals to live their lives with independence and dignity. For years, I had faced moments of frustration and misunderstanding, but I never imagined how widespread the challenges truly were until Karen's confrontation forced it into the spotlight. That day, when Karen kicked my dog and refused to back down, I felt isolated and overwhelmed. But as the story spread, I discovered a whole community of people who understood exactly what I was going through. People with their own stories of harassment, discrimination, and entitlement directed at them and their service animals. Suddenly, my experience was no longer a lonely battle, but part of a collective struggle that demanded attention. Finding this community became a turning point for me. I connected with others through online groups, local meetups, and advocacy organizations. These connections provided not just advice and support, but a sense of belonging. Sharing stories and strategies helped me see the bigger picture and realize I wasn't alone. We were all working toward the same goal: respect for service animals and the people who depend on them. This larger movement gave me hope. I saw how people came together to educate businesses, influence policy, and create safer spaces for service dog owners. The fight against ignorance and entitlement was ongoing, but it was gaining momentum. Being part of that was empowering. It made me more than just a victim of Karen's tantrums, it made me an advocate for change. The support and solidarity reminded me how important Community Island. When one person stands up, it can inspire many others to do the same. The courage to speak out and the willingness to share experiences build a stronger network that protects us all. I realized that every small action, whether it's calmly explaining the law, documenting an incident, or simply showing kindness, contributes to a larger shift in understanding. In the end, this wasn't just my story. It was a story about resilience, connection, and the power of standing together. And with every voice that joins in, the future looks brighter for service dog owners everywhere. As I look back on everything that happened, it becomes clear that this story was never just about me or my service dog. It was about a larger reality faced by countless people who rely on service animals to live their lives independently and with dignity. For years, I thought the challenges I faced were isolated incidents, but Karen's confrontation made me realize just how widespread the problem really is. People all around the country experience similar moments of ignorance, hostility, and outright harassment simply because they have a service animal. Discovering this community was a turning point. I found others through online groups, local meetups, and advocacy organizations who understood exactly what I was going through. Their stories mirrored my own, filled with the same frustrations, fears, and moments of triumph. Connecting with them brought a sense of belonging and solidarity that I hadn't expected. It was comforting to know I wasn't alone, and inspiring to see so many people standing up for their rights and the rights of their animals. Being part of this broader movement gave me hope. Together, we are pushing for greater awareness and better protections. We share strategies on how to educate others about service animal laws and how to handle difficult encounters calmly and effectively. We support each other emotionally and legally, offering advice on what to do when faced with discrimination. This collective effort shows that change is possible when people come together with a shared purpose. What I learned most is how powerful community can be. When one person finds the courage to speak out, it encourages others to do the same. The strength we gain from standing together cannot be underestimated. Every voice that joins the conversation helps shift perceptions and fosters greater understanding. Small actions, like sharing stories or calmly asserting rights, build momentum toward a more respectful and inclusive society. In the end, this journey taught me that my experience is part of a larger story about resilience and connection. It's about the courage to face adversity and the power of community to create change. And as more people raise their voices, the future for service dog owners and their companions becomes brighter every day. If you've ever had a Karen lose it over something they didn't understand, this story is your anthem. Hit subscribe for more tales where entitlement crashes and burns spectacularly. Drop your own Karen moments in the comments, trust me, sharing helps. Remember, the next time someone tries to kick your service dog, keep calm, document everything, and maybe sell their dog to the clinic. Until next time, may your service animals stay safe and your Karens stay firmly in their lane.